This video is for Chapter 5, Section 5.2 for the math activity Equality and Inequality with fraction bars. We'll also look at common denominators. In the first question, we look at two bars with the same shading, and we see this means the fractions they represent are the same. 2/3 is equal to 8/12. In your deck of fraction bars, there are 32 bars, and we ask you in number 1 to sort these into equivalent fraction piles. So for example, I can match these two bars, they have the same shading. Once you've sorted the bars, write which fractions you are representing. We ask you to do some specific fractions, and then we introduce the whole bar and the zero bar. The zero bar has no parts shaded, and the whole bar has all the parts shaded. List the whole and zero bar fractions. In question 2, we remind you of the not lowest terms. If the numerator and the denominator of a fraction have a common factor, the fraction is not in lowest terms. Let's look at the fractions from the deck other than the 0 and 1 bars that are not in lowest terms, and then let's write those fractions in lowest terms. For example, this bar 3/6 is not in lowest terms. 3 and 6 have the common factor of 3. When I write that fraction in lowest terms, 1/2, I can also use my bars to see how that works out. Here I have one part shaded. You can see it doesn't simplify any further. In question 3, we look at inequalities. A 3/4 bar has more shading than a 2/3 bar, so 3/4 is greater than 2/3. We give you some fraction pairs and ask you to find bars in between these different size bars. For example, if I had 1/2 and 1/4, 1/2 is greater than 1/4, 1/2 has more shading. A bar that's in between them is the 1/3 bar. And this I can represent with the fraction inequality 1/2 is greater than 1/3 is greater than 1/4, or I could write it in the other order. 1/4 is less than 1/3 is less than 1/2. In number 4, we start with common denominator work by looking at splitting bars and creating equivalent fractions. If I split my 3/4 bar, each piece into 2 equal parts, 3/4 becomes 6/8. And we ask you to do this for a variety of fractions and write the fraction equivalent equations. For example, here is my half bar, and if I split it, I can see that 1/2 becomes 2/4. You could use 2 bars to show 1/2 is equal to 2/4, but this splitting is a different approach. You can also split bars into 3 parts or 4, and in question 5, we start thinking about what to do to create common denominators. If I look at a 3rd bar and a 5/6 bar, if I divide each part of the 3rd bar into 4 pieces and each part of the 6th bar into 2 pieces, my pieces are all the same size. 1/3 is 4/12 and 5/6 is 10/12. You can see we have a common denominator here. So we ask you to divide pairs of the following fractions and create fraction equivalents, and think about which fraction concepts you're using. That's it for Math Activity 5.2. I hope you have fun with your introduction to fractions and fraction